Hey y'all, it's Andrea here at VW Family Farm, and I'm sitting in front of my tomato plants in my back garden. A couple days ago I took you guys on a garden tour and told you what was going on with our tomatoes in our front tomato patch, and that thankfully we had 2 of them and it had not spread back here yet, but it has quickly spread back here. The conditions were good and favorable for this fungus in the front garden, and obviously they were the same conditions back here, so it has quickly declined back here. So I thought it was worth going through this with you guys, talking about what this is and what I'm going to do about it and everything you need to know. This is called Septoria leaf spot, or you might also hear it called Septoria blight. Some people just refer to it as leaf spot or blight. You might see those if you go to the store and buy a fungicide for tomatoes. It might just simply say leaf spot, that it takes care of leaf spot. And that's what this is. So let's talk about what does it affect. Well, it can affect tomato plants as well as other members of that family, like potatoes and eggplants. It can definitely affect those as well. So it's just getting started back here. You can see this dead foliage, and then you can see these leaves with these spots on them. We'll show you a close-up here in just a second. But this is not necessarily fatal to these plants, but what it does is it will quickly defoliate them, meaning you will lose all the leaves on your plant. In fact, up front, we have some plants that hardly have any leaves at all left on them. And then that's gonna render your plant unable to bring fruits all the way to maturity. So it may as well die, because you're not gonna be able, if you don't do something about this, you're not gonna get any more tomatoes off of it if it gets severe enough. So these are actually fungus spores, and they can hide out and wait for the ideal conditions. I told you that they don't necessarily, the other day, they don't live in the soil, but they will live in and under plant material that is in or on the soil. So it loves warm, damp conditions. Those are most favorable for this leaf spot to develop, and that's when you better be watching, and that's exactly what we've had this year. So water and wind will both spread this fungus. It will usually start on the bottom of the plant. You can see this is just starting, and that this limb has gotten laid down on the ground. We're waiting on some more clips to come in the mail, but that is a horrible situation for them to be on the ground, because this fungus can splash up from the weeds and the dirt that is under your plant. Even though it's not living in your soil, it's living on weeds and plants that have gotten worked into your soil. So if you have the right conditions, warm and damp weather, you need to be on the lookout for this to develop. It's very common. You can take care of this. Have confidence, you can do this. But what you need to be looking for is down, like I told you, on the lower leaves, you're gonna start seeing, and I'm just gonna take one of these leaves and show you. So you're gonna start on the lower leaves, start seeing these little spots develop. They usually have a dark outline and then a lighter spot in the middle. And as it progresses, these will start to just merge together until eventually they look like this, brown and dead, and they will start to fall off. And once it starts, it spreads very, very rapidly, and you better be ready to take some action, or you will lose your tomato crop, because once you lose your leaves, the tomatoes you have on there have no protection from sun scalding and things of that nature. And when you lose all the leaves, you don't have any hope of more fruit producing and growing to maturity. So you have to do something, and you have to do it quickly. So before we get to what we're gonna do about this, because it has already taken hold in our garden, what can you do? What steps can you take to avoid this altogether? Number one is disease-free seed. So if you've had this problem, don't save seeds from infected plants, because you could just be bringing that back into your garden the next year. Number two is, if you're gonna try to save these now, some people will just rip these out at this point. I'm not gonna do that. This is my whole tomato crop, and I'm gonna try to save these. But if you decide to rip them out at this point, get rid of them, burn them. Don't put them in your compost pile that you're gonna then put back on your garden. You could just be putting fungus back on there with the plant particles and stuff in your compost pile. Even at the end of the year, clean your garden up.
Get rid of all diseased plant material. We talked about that even on the squash bug video. That will do wonders if you will get rid of your plant material at the end of the year. Get it out of your garden, and if it was diseased, not in your compost pile. A couple more things. If you will mulch below your plants, which we did not get that done this year, and we did leave a strip of dirt where we planted between the 2 rows of ground fabric, you will avoid, if you put that layer of mulch or if you put the ground cover all the way up and you just plant in the hole, either one of those, you will avoid the dirt splashing up onto your plants, which can introduce things like this because you have weeds and things growing down in the dirt that this fungus could be living on. Also, provide plenty of room between tomato plants. When you pack them really tightly, that doesn't let enough airflow happen, and that's just where fungus thrives, is in warm, damp, dark conditions. So when you shade all that out and you don't give them light and airflow, that's just a breeding ground. Also, overhead watering is not a good idea if you can help it. If you can use drip tape or just some type of cheap soaker hose, something to water from below. But our problem this year has not been overhead watering. It's been so much rain, which is a blessing, but you cannot avoid them getting wet from the top when it's raining every day or two. So that's just something, if it's raining all the time, if you've had a really wet year, that you're gonna have to deal with. And finally, crop rotation if you can. If you cannot, clean your garden up immaculately clean if you're going to replant in the same spot and you've had this problem. But if you can, move them to a different spot. Keep in mind, eggplants and potatoes are also very much affected by this. So don't go put your tomatoes right where your potatoes were or whatever. Go with a different family of vegetables. Put them maybe where the cabbages were or something like that. Get them in a different area. Like I said, if you can't, you can't. You just got to work with that. So what to do about it? So if it's already started in your garden, you have a few options. Remove the diseased and dead foliage off your plants. Get it out of your garden and take it far away from your tomato plants. Number 2, find an organic fungicide and try that. I'm gonna be honest though, sometimes when things are very advanced in the garden, and this has come on back here seemingly overnight, sometimes the organic options, you just need a little bit stronger punch. Sometimes those work great. We try to be as natural and organic as possible, but when we feel like it's gone above that, we will still try to save the crop because our food is depending on this garden. A couple of organic options is copper and potassium bicarb. Potassium bicarbonate. So you can find those most places. There's all types of fungicides that are not labeled organic. Some of them are, but for one additive or another that might be in there, they can't be certified organic. If you aren't educated on organic growing and things like that, I encourage you to read up on that. I think a lot of people think organically means that you just do nothing. You never spray anything on your plants. You go with just whatever happens in nature, but that's not technically how it is. So I would encourage you to study up on that. If you're having a problem in your garden, find something you're comfortable using, because even organic growers are having to treat their plants for certain diseases and pests that come along. So just find something you're comfortable with using to treat the problem. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I've gotten something from my local just hardware store. I'm not gonna recommend it to y'all because I've never used it before and it's just what they had. It was basically the only thing they had. So if it works, I will share that with you in the future, but I would encourage you, go to your local store, get you a fungicide, whether that is organic or whether you're comfortable using something that's not organic, and get your plants treated at the first sign, so maybe you can still have a good harvest this year. So I hope this helped you guys. I got to get to work back here spraying and cleaning this up because this has came on rapidly and I want to put a stop to it. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. I hope that helped you guys, and if you think this video will help other people, share it, because Septoria leaf spot is very common. If you haven't dealt with it, you probably will at some time. So save this video to look back on, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Appreciate you so much, and God bless.